I don't know if you've been paying too much attention to this, but over these past couple days, there's been a lot of rumors surrounding Sony apparently developing a new handheld console. With this thing rumored to be releasing in early 2024, it's capable of 1080p 60 frames per second streaming. The prototype is rumored to have an 8-inch LCD screen, adaptive triggers, haptic feedback. Essentially, it's being described as a PlayStation 5 controller with an 8-inch LCD screen in the middle. And this is not an official controller right here that I'm showing on screen. This is actually a concept that a 3D artist came out with months ago. But this is just a visual representation of what the handheld console is reported to look like. The basic idea anyways, with the DualSense controller with a touchscreen in the middle. This is much more futuristic than I think Sony would ever put out. And honestly, it's not really realistic since something like this, the battery would just die instantly. But it's kind of crazy to think. Sony's last attempt to get into the handheld gaming market was the PlayStation Vita all the way back in 2012, and that console's lifespan was incredibly short. As exciting as it was and truthfully as impressive as the hardware was back in 2012, nobody knew this thing fucking existed. And ultimately, that was Sony's fault alone. The marketing wasn't there, they really didn't support it. When a game finally came out to show this thing's true potential, that game being Killzone Mercenary, Sony pulled the plug. It was too late. They cut the development and support of other games that would have truly pushed this hardware to its fullest potential, and then they ended up cutting the production of the Vita altogether, leaving a legacy of bad ports, poor sales numbers, PSP titles being repurposed on the PlayStation Vita in hopes that people would buy this thing just to play old PSP games, and honestly, Sony never looked back. Given the time span of well over 10 years since the PlayStation Vita hit the market, the growth of cloud gaming and streaming services along with solid handheld consoles showing not only that there is a healthy and large consumer market surrounding handheld consoles, but the consoles themselves can actually stand up on their own. Look at the Nintendo Switch. How many games are on that since it first released? How many units have Nintendo been able to sell? Or even more recently, and honestly much more impressively, the Steam Deck. AAA games capable of running at 1080p 60 FPS directly off their hardware with no streaming required. While the prospect and rumors of a potential new Sony handheld being in the works and rumored to be released in 2024 sounds exciting, it's hard not only to say how it's going to play out, but there's a lot of other factors to take into consideration now. The gaming landscape has entirely changed. Off the rip, my first question is, let's say this handheld console is true. What's going to stop someone from buying a Steam Deck over this console? What incentives are Sony going to put forward to switch that up? Obviously, price is going to play a factor, but does this also mean they're going to be messing around with the scheduling for Sony exclusives that were going to come to PC, now going to be switched around in favor to make this handheld console bundle, whatever they plan on putting forward, a little bit more enticing? Better yet, it doesn't even sound like a real console. It sounds like an accessory to the PlayStation 5. I think about a week ago, Sony put out a new trailer really pushing remote play, and while the details on this prototype console are still very vague and all over the place, it sounds like remote play is a big thing. They're not really pushing cloud streaming, they're more so pushing remote play, essentially meaning you need a PlayStation 5. It sounds like a very weird thing. I mean, of course it is a prototype, who knows how accurate this stuff is, but rumors also state there's volume buttons, speakers, and audio jack stuff that you expect with a handheld console, adaptive triggers, haptic feedback. Essentially, it's a beefed up PlayStation 5 controller with a big ass screen in the center. But it is going to require a constant connection to the internet, and rumors are also making it clear that it's not dedicated to cloud streaming, it is more so pushed towards remote play, which is weird. Maybe Sony's just kind of filling the market and seeing how people respond to something like this. I know a couple months ago they put out the DualSense Edge, which is basically a glorified PlayStation 5 controller. That's retailing for $200 USD, so I wonder what they're gonna price this new quote-unquote handheld device at, one that's really pushing for a specific feature tied to this console and the fact that it's not really a handheld device. Or even let's go the other way and say the reports are wrong and it's actually going to be a fully dedicated handheld console. Okay, cool. So what's going to differentiate this from the Steam Deck? They're going to have to price it around at least $100 cheaper from the cheapest version of the Steam Deck, and they're going to have to tie some type of bundles, maybe some exclusives, some small spin-offs, real spin-offs with dedicated teams, treating it like actual AAA releases like they would on a PlayStation 5. Like, I know an idea like this might piss some people off, but not that long ago, I believe there was rumors rumors that Uncharted is getting a soft reboot and it's not Naughty Dog working on it. Let's say it's a small spin-off and it actually is coming out on this handheld console. Like I said, might piss some people off, similar to, I think it was a new Diablo that came out specifically on phones and not PC. That's kind of slap in the face when you have established IPs and they're switching platforms like that, especially when they're little smaller experiences when you're dying for it. But that would make more sense than Sony putting out a glorified PlayStation 5 accessory, a very overpriced accessory. But I don't know, I just found it interesting because the first thing that came to my mind was the Steam Deck, and that Sony is continually putting out, even though they're launching as bad ports. Case in point, The Last of Us releasing on PC lately. I mean, it just seems like what Sony's doing right now is kind of working for them, let's be honest. They're releasing old PlayStation exclusives on console, they're raking in some dough. From a business standpoint, the way I'm looking at it, it doesn't make sense for them to try and jump into a handheld market when they can just keep investing into exclusives and then pulling out, as shitty as it is, this long game of slowly releasing their titles on Steam and getting huge cash bumps here and there from those exclusive releasing on a new platform. But I'm curious, I wish there was more detail surrounding this. I think it's in a very, very early stage. If this is to release sometime early next year, I'm assuming within the next couple months we'll start seeing more of it, especially with Spider-Man 2's gameplay coming out. I'm sure we'll start seeing and hearing more of this thing if it is legit. But in the meantime, let me know what you think. Would you be interested in buying a new PlayStation handheld? What do you think Sony would have to do to basically pull people over into buying this thing over anything else? Or even if it is, let's say, just a glorified piece of hardware for remote play, would you even be interested in something like that? Personally, for me, I would not. My experience with remote play from the PlayStation Vita and the PlayStation 4 completely soured my experience. I don't like that idea. I'd rather have a handheld console that's completely capable of playing games directly off the hardware itself rather than relying on an internet connection. But that's just me. Let's talk down in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you think about all this. In the meantime, maybe join the Discord and chat with some like-minded people in there about this potentially horrible Sony idea. But like always, guys, my name is Cynic. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you all later.